Hello, my name's David Finlayson with Chesapeake Technology, and today we wanted to spend about 20 minutes or a half an hour talking about some of the new features that we put into SonarWiz 7.2. Now, we wanted to keep this short and simple, so I'm not going to go through in detail how to use all of these features, but we just wanted to highlight some of the new things that went into the product over the last couple of months, and give you an opportunity to see how they work. So let me the biggest features that are user-facing in 7.2 are enhancements to the bathymetric waterfalls and contact reports. We've got a new 3D contact report type, so that if you pick a contact off of a bathymetry target, you can make either conventional 2D reports, which you've always been able to do in SonarWiz, or we've got a new style that allows you to lay the point cloud over the top. And for some kinds of contacts, it's really good. We have a couple of new enhancements, little map decorations. We have a new color legend that shows up in the corner of the display. And this is a little bit nicer looking than the color window that we've been using for the last year or so. It doesn't take the color window away, it's just a decoration that you can use and leave on the screen. It doesn't take up as much space. We have also put some work into the 3D viewer so it's easier to use, especially if you have larger point clouds in there. There's been a lot of work going on to visualize Lidar data, and we noticed that there were some problems with the 3D viewer, so I'll show you how those work. We've also done kind of improved our support for R2Sonic's TruePix format, which is it's a special type of multi-beam file format that has some characteristics similar to an interferometer. It has really high resolution data, but it still retains some beam angle information, so you get really nice imagery with beam angle information. So it's sort of it's a merge of snippets and what you get from an interferometric system, but it has all the angle information that you have from multi-beam. And this is a potential alternative to doing full water column work, so you only retain actual targeted information or data that has strong amplitudes. But we're continuing to work with this to try to use this to better potential. And also, related to R2Sonic, we're starting to see multi-frequency systems more often. We've had them for side scan for a while, but now we're getting multi-beam systems, starting with R2Sonic, that can actually change frequency on each ping. And it gives you an opportunity to look at the seabed at different frequencies and how does the seabed respond. And one of the tools for kind of analyzing this data is acoustic color, and I'll go show you exactly how that works in a minute. And then finally, I won't be able to show you live. My computer's not strong enough to have the webinar software and SonarWiz and real-time simulators and stuff going at the same time. But we have made some enhancements to the Helm display, so and the real-time view, so that you can see like the water line of your boat is actually in 3D, and in the Helm display it's now the colors match what you're seeing in SonarWiz, so that as the bathymetry is being laid down, it looks the same as it does in SonarWiz. So let's get started with shaded relief in bathy waterfalls. So I've got a project here with some Rezon data collected in England, and what we're looking at now is just the raw point cloud data in the plan view viewer. Now, some of the targets in this are obvious. They pop right out of the seabed, and that's why we chose this data set. It's kind of a harbor. So if you select one of these and you open up the waterfall digitizer, let's turn this off for a moment. So we'll go to digitize new bathymetric features. It opens the bathymetric data set in the waterfall display, where you can scan through just like you can with the side scan file and identify targets and pick contacts. But one of the key advantages of having bathymetry is that we can see things in 3 dimensions, and using just color alone makes it hard to tell if there's small targets on the seabed. So one of the enhancements we made was adding shaded relief effect to the waterfall display. So to get that, you would go to the View menu and turn on the shaded relief functions, which have been moved to this View menu. So you turn them on here. There's a couple of different options. You can have slope corrections, you can control the vertical exaggeration, light azimuth, elevation direction. That's all dynamically done. And now, take a look, for example, if we turn this off, there's actually a target right here on my cursor, but it's really hard to see without the shaded relief. When I turn the shading on, you can tell that it's much easier here. As we scroll through, we'll find some bigger targets. There's a target there. Notice that the cursor tracking is matched between the plan view and the waterfall display. Now here's some larger targets that'll look more impressive in the report. So we'll capture a sonar target here, just like you would with side scan. You use the target contact editor. Here I'll put 3 contacts in. And these are now listed here, just like they would be with side scan. And also they're in the target strip, where you can open them up in the contact editor. And now you can measure these things. We can zoom in on them. You can classify them. You have all the same tools that you've had in the past. So what's nice about I've already talked about the shaded relief, but also in the reports that you make with the shading on the bathymetric contacts, that's where some of the new features are. So if we go to the report generator, so I've opened up the contact manager here, and I've got my 3 bathymetric contacts, and I go to the report generator. If you make a conventional 2D report, let's do this quickly. Oops. We'll do small English. This is a built-in template. It exports the images with the shading that you've specified, and opens up Adobe here, and we've got our title page with the 3 contacts on it, and then the shaded relief images down here. Now, one nice thing, you can switch between bathymetric views, or you can have the amplitude view at the same time. You can mix side scan in with the bathymetric view. It's whatever you pick the target on is what will show up in this report. What's another cool thing that is new is this 3D contact report. So this is a new template that you'll find down here. If you create a new report, I've already done it here once, so it shows up already. So we'll have 3D PDF here, and if you go under the report file type, this Adobe 3D PDF is the new report type. There's some restrictions on the form. At the moment, we only allow 1 target per page, so this report format's not available. And then all the rest of the dialog is pretty much the same. Now, exporting this takes a little bit longer, because what SonarWiz is going to do is look at the footprint of the target that you picked out and clip out the bathymetry from that track line, extract it, and put the 2 parts together, so you have a projected version of your bathymetric contact, and you'll have the point cloud up on top of that. And as soon as this finishes, I'll show you what that looks like. But it takes more memory, obviously, to build these things in your PDF file, and it also takes a little bit longer to generate. But it can be a really powerful tool for looking at contacts, and you don't need SonarWiz to view these things. So you can hand the PDF off along with your other reporting products, and all someone needs is Adobe's reader. So here's the PDF report, and the title page is just the same as a 2D report. But when you switch down to the 3D report, you now have, let me see if I can zoom out. Here's all the metadata about that contact, and the contact itself is here. So now it looks like I should have edited this data a little more. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Oh, I'm showing my Adobe PDF page display. There we go. Now these controls up here, this here controls how the whole thing is going to look. And you have a tree, this tree mode that looks like this little box here, which allows you to turn things on and off. So, for example, if you want to turn those scale bars off here, we can turn the bounding box on and off, and we can turn the point cloud off and see the actual image. This is just the flat image that's underneath. It does show the shading, and then the point cloud on top of that. Where it really gets useful is in some of these more complex structures like this that have, you know, real three-dimensional features on this, which a 2D view often doesn't show very well. So I think 3D contact reports are an interesting option for people who are collecting data with bathymetric systems. We're still working on some of the details. The 3D PDF viewer is somewhat sensitive to the graphics card on your machine, and so it does require more power than just a standard PDF. It also has to be enabled. By default, Adobe disables 3D viewing, so you have to turn that on to make it work. Okay, so that's shaded relief and bathymetry and waterfalls. And the other thing I wanted to show is this new plan view, color legend. So in previous versions of SonarWiz, if you wanted to see what your color ramp palette was, you had to open up the color window, and it occupied this entire window. It's a dockable window, and you can move it around, but it's not really a map decoration in the same sense that latitude graticule lines are, or the map view, or anything like that. So what we wanted was something that was smaller that you could leave on the screen, just like the other map directions. So if you go to View, or Map Decorations, if you go to View, in the same menu with the 2D map display group, you'll see the map scales here and Latin long and the XY grid. This has always been here. But there's a new option called the color legend. And when you turn that on, it will by default show up here in the upper right hand corner. And if you click on this with the right mouse button, you can select which of the data types you want the legend to represent. And it comes up with bathymetry because that's what I used last time. You can also change what what corner it's in. So it can be in different corners or whatever. And then you won't need to have this full color display open while you're, for example, collecting data. You can pan around and zoom in and make screenshots and everything, and this legend, it's a nice legend, will show up. And that's how that works. It works for side scan, bathymetry, all the standard supported data types in SonarWiz. Okay, the next thing I wanted to show you are some improvements we've made to Lidar data. If you're working with Lidar data in SonarWiz, this is a fairly new data type in the SonarWiz suite, and we continue to add new features to make that easier to use. So there's really two that I want to talk about. And the first one is improvements to the import filters, and then the second is some enhancements we've made to the 3D viewer to help work with Lidar point clouds. So let's switch to a Lidar project as an example data set here. I think this is a Velodyne data set. And I've just got a single track line imported right now. And what I wanted to show you is that when we first imported this, we accepted everything. And you can kind of see where the track line of the boat was. This might be where the scanner is a spinning circular scanner that's mounted vertically, so it spins like a Ferris wheel, 360 degrees all the way around. And it collects data on all those axes. So when it's pointed straight down, it's seeing the mount, and it can sometimes see part of the boat where it was mounted on if you don't have it up on a great big tower. It also has, you know, a limited range. It's a small system, so it only is valid out to about 100 meters. So we wanted to have some kind of system when you import the data where you can control how that filtering works. So if we go to post-processing import, down here you'll see laser scanner files as an option. So we'll bring this in, and the new feature is here under the advanced button. If you open this up, we have this Lidar import filter. Now by default, it accepts everything. So that's the full 360 degrees out to 100 meters for this particular system. If you want to restrict the range, you can use these sliders. You can see now it started to open up. It's not going to accept anything closer than, say, 5 meters. And maybe we only want to go out to 75 meters. We don't trust the data beyond that. You can also set the angle that you want. So you can filter out, for example, some of that reflections off the seafloor or off the sea itself. And you can even filter by intensity as well. Then when you import this data, let's try that, we can kind of filter out some of this noise. So there, now it cleaned up that image of the ship that it was every time it circled around. And it's also removed all the data beyond about 75 meters here. So that's the Lidar import filter. We've also made some improvements to the 3D view, which were primarily driven by the use of Lidar data, but it works for all of our systems as well. So if you want to see a data set in 3D, you just select the data set and then display. Well, let's turn on the 3D view first here. So if you go to View, Enable 3D View, and it kind of pops up. You can dock it wherever you want. And then we will turn on the 3D view. And now we've got the Lidar data here in the 3D viewer. So there are two big changes to how this works. And you kind of have to be familiar with the old way, because this, I think it's more intuitive the way it works now. But one of the problems, there's two issues. The first one is when you're zooming, where do you zoom to? Now the way the new system works, you just point to whatever you want to zoom into. Say if we want to zoom into this feature here, and then we start using the scroll wheel, or you can use the page up and page down button, it will zoom to wherever you point to. So if you point over here to this corner, it will zoom in that direction. If you zoom down here, it zooms there. The other issue is where's the rotation point. So all you have to do, we've tried to make this work a little bit more like Google Earth, to be honest. What we wanted is you just click anywhere in the display, and that moves the rotation point to wherever you click. So if we want to rotate around this rock right here, we just click there, and now we're rotating around that. That's moved the axis there. If you want to rotate around this, you click over there, and it rotates. So here's a crane. We could rotate around that. Where this really helps is if you have like long, narrow surveys. For example, you surveyed a key wall or something like that, and you want to zoom in on a particular spot. That really makes it a lot easier to use. So that's the improvements to the 3D viewer. So this is a lot easier to use than it used to be. I've got some time to show you a couple of improvements to TruePix. So let me open this guy up. So like I said, R2 Sonic has a new file format that's sort of an intermediate between a bathymetric dataset and a full water column dataset. So in a water column dataset, you get about 8,000 samples or 10,000 samples per beam. And if you have 512 beams, you're talking thousands of samples. What TruePix does is it still uses some filtering to just pick out individual targets in each beam, but unlike an interferometer, that's very similar to an interferometer, but unlike an interferometer, it still has all that beam angle information. So the first thing that we wanted to do is, it's really beautiful imagery, and so we wanted a way to show you what that looked like. So what you're looking at here is actual bathymetric amplitude data, but some customers really wanted to use our side scan engine for doing that, so we made it possible to import R2 Sonic files, these R2S files if you're recording them in HiPAC, as if they were side scan. So you click here, go to File Properties in R2 Sonic and make sure you're importing the TruePix data, and you can bring this in as a single side scan file. We're also working with being able to bring that data in as if it were bathymetry, and there's still some issues with the current version of SonarWiz limits you to only 5,000 samples per starboard and port side. So that would be 10,000 total, and that is only about half of what's in a typical R2 Sonic file, so we are working on that. But here we imported the same track line, so here's the line as bathymetry and backscatter, and now you've got it also as side scan. So you can, for example, go to the digitized features here. You can see it. There's all the data. There's water column data in this. So it's a very cool data set. It's similar to a side scan in that you have this full range of information, but you have accurate angles, so you know the angle or range to where those image pixels came from. And again, this is all now available to side scan customers. The other thing that R2 Sonic has been working on is this multi-frequency data, and we've been putting tools into SonarWiz to help make multi-frequency work better. So what a multi-frequency multi-beam is doing is these newer systems can change frequency dynamically. So they can go as low as 100 kilohertz or maybe up to 500 kilohertz. And R2 Sonic has introduced a mode that would allow you to sweep. So each ping is a different frequency. And if you zoom into these things, you can actually tell. If we zoom into the actual point clouds here, I'm going to make these a little bigger so they show up better on the, let's go to view. Make the points a little thicker. You can see here that each ping is a different color. And partly that is because each is a different frequency and they're uncompensated. So the first change that we made is we introduced a filter that allows you to filter out the frequency you want. The next thing we worked on was a way to visualize how these things change. So if we zoom out here, what I've done is I've taken this huge data set and I've plotted it by frequency. So the first one that we're looking at is a high frequency data set, and if we turn that off, you can see low frequency. So there's a 100 kilohertz and there's a 400 kilohertz. And what we've done is we've added you want to be able to visualize how this is actually changing, how the different frequencies are responding. And what we've got is a new tool under post-processing, this build acoustic color image. So what you take is a red grid, a green grid, and a blue grid. And in this case, we have a 100, 200, and 400 kilohertz. And we create a TIFF from that, which I've already done here. And now, this looks bizarre, but if you get used to looking at this, what you know is the red areas are where the low frequency responded strongest to the data, and blue areas are where the high frequency responded strongest. So these are ways to tease apart kind of the sediment or the seabed classification that's down there and help you kind of pull it all apart. It's just a tool we're still working on, but it's available to people who are interested in seabed classification and visualization of different acoustic frequencies. Now the final couple of things, let's see, we talked about this. The final thing is we've made some enhancements to the Helm display, and in real time, I wasn't able to show this, but in real time the 3D viewer will now show you've got the boat and we have the beams. These are in 7.1, but now you can actually see the water line. That's a kind of small feature, but it makes it look really cool when the data is coming in. The other thing that we worked on was making the Helm display, which the pilot is looking at, match what is in SonarWiz a little bit better. So if you're all by yourself, you want to know that things are recording, so we now have recording icon indicators here. You've also got the colors from the side scan Bathy will work better. These match what's in SonarWiz now. There was a disconnect originally. And then finally, we've added bathymetric depth display to the Helm display as well, so that you know how deep it is. And that's coming straight from the depth sounder. There are a couple of other things that were put into SonarWiz, and let me open up. So if you go to our website, this is our home page here. Right now you can go to what's new in 7.2, and it has a more comprehensive list of all the new features and where to find them. You can also download, if your EMA is up to date, you can download the latest version right now, which is on our support website. That's www.chesstechsupport.com. And the way to get to that is go to support, product support, and then hit the product support button twice. I guess you have to hit it twice. And that will, the login to CTI support site is what you want. And that takes you to our support website where you can type in your username and password and download the latest version of SonarWiz. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to email them to us at support@chesapeaketech.com, or you can email me directly at davidf@chesapeaketech.com, and we'll try to answer your questions. Thank you for watching.